Before we start this week's video, I'd like to make it clear that the objectification of women is wrong and sexist, and making lists of hot women is degrading. Okay, sometimes it may lead to useful things, like IMDb, but other times it can lead to terrible things, like Facebook. But this list, my top 10 retro cartoon crushes, is different. It's completely innocent. It's just a list of crushes I had when I was a child. And plus, they're all cartoons, so it doesn't matter, and it's definitely not weird. And next week, I'll do the hottest male cartoon people of all time, just to even things up. Right, let's get started. Although, let me just note, it is TV cartoons, not film ones. So that's why there's no Jessica Rabbit or the chick off Aladdin. At 10, we have a sizzler from Scooby-Doo. But I'm going to shock you here. It's not Daphne. Daphne does have beautiful porcelain looks. I mean, there can be no doubt about that. But no one watched Scooby-Doo for Daphne or Fred, and certainly not for bleeding Scrappy-Doo. It's Velma. I always had a bit of a thing for Velma. I loved her take charge tone. I loved her obvious intelligence. I liked her cute little hairdo. I liked her chunky knit and knee socks combo. But most of all, she was really endearing whenever she lost her glasses, which she did all the time.
Hey, my glasses! I can't see without them. They should be around here somewhere.
I mean, in most kids shows, when a female character takes off her glasses, it sort of reveals this great beauty underneath. But that wasn't the case with Velma. She was much cuter with her cool, nerdy specs on. Full disclosure, I don't think I ever watched a full episode of Shera. Me and my brother did like He-Man, although we used to question why exactly Prince Adam needed to hide his identity. It didn't really seem to be necessary. And also we used to laugh about how at the end of every episode they would laugh about something that clearly wasn't funny.
And that is why you are truly a brave knight, Sir Orko.
I'm truly a brave knight. I'm truly a brave...
Anyway, back to Shera. I mean, she was quite fit. I mean, her clothing was completely impractical and there was no real reason for her skirt to be that short, but I suppose when you got legs like hers, why not? At 8, we get to the Flintstones and of course the long-running debate. Betty or Wilma? I used to quite like Red Dwarf and they debated it on there once, and the Fabulous Cat said this.
What do you think of Betty? Betty Rubble? Well, I would go with Betty. But I'd be thinking of Wilma.
I have no problem with Cat's feelings there. He's totally entitled to his own opinion, but I do respectfully disagree. Wilma was always a bit too well-to-do and a bit too wifey for young me, and I could never quite buy that she would have been able to do her hair like that in the Stone Age. I mean, what sort of products was she going to be using? And also, when I was researching pictures of Wilma for this video, I found possibly the worst cartoon costume I have ever seen. I mean, why is she holding a prehistoric baseball bat? Makes no sense. The Hooded Claw always wanted to get his claws into my number 7, Penelope Pit Stop. I couldn't remember quite why he always wanted to do it, but when I looked it up, it's actually quite dark. He's a member of her family and he's trying to bump her off so that he can get hold of her inheritance. Anyway, I did love his catchphrase.
I'll get you, Penelope Pit Stop.
There are 3 reasons why Dan Jr. had a little crush on Pen. The first is that she's clearly a fox. Secondly, it was the way she ran. It was absolutely incredible. Every stride was a hurdle. Never seen anything like it. And third, of course, it was that incredible Southern Belle voice.
Help! Help!
I'll help you, Penelope. Not that she really ever needed any help. I think she just got the ant-hill mob involved just so they'd feel wanted. I'd almost forgotten about Fangface. I had a vague memory right at the back of my mind of some human that could turn into a monster beating up werewolf, but only if he could see a full moon. It was like the most inconvenient superpower ever. Luckily in the cartoon they had a picture of a full moon and that worked just as well, you know, I suppose, as long as they didn't lose the picture.
Here, Fangs, take a look at this.
Huh? Why do I always have to look at that picture of the moon?
Anyway, I'm getting bogged down. It was when I was doing my research for this and I came across Fangface that I was reminded of the lovely Kim. Waves of nostalgia washed over me. I mean, just look at her. Absolutely beautiful. And my memory is that she was easily the most intelligent of the group, clearly the most stylish. Her entire look is achingly on point, yo. And I think she was far too good for this. You know, she was far too good to be hanging around with one-toothed werewolves. She should have been parachuted straight into Scooby-Doo to replace Daphne. Give her the platform she deserved. A full 3 places higher than Wilma Flintstone is Betty Rubble. Wilma was very much the traditional housewife, but to me, Betty always felt slightly more exotic. I mean, even as a kid, I thought there was a little bit more lurking under that blue dress. I mean, for a start, how did she get a blue dress? It's quite clear that the boys are wearing animal furs, and I assume that Wilma slayed and skinned a pure white goat for her dress. But what animal has a blue skin?
That's not funny, Barney.
Anyway, my suspicions that there was a little bit more hiding under that literal girl next door surface were confirmed in the episode where she wore this slinky number, having apparently hunted down some kind of snow leopard. I mean, look at those eyes. Barney is a lucky man. A very lucky man. I mean, look at him. Sadly, just like Wilma, there's a terrible Betty cosplay outfit out there for sale. I mean, she never wore a two-piece. It is miles off. Unlike Wilma though, there's also a very good one. Not that I've been searching for them, of course. These are very innocent childhood crushes. Still, Betty can Barney my rubble anytime. So while I loved the Flintstones, I always slightly preferred Captain Caveman. I think the reason for that was mainly that Captain Caveman was just funnier than Scooby-Doo as a singular character. Sorry, them's the facts. But also the Teen Angels. I mean, they were all great. For a start, Taffy was great at saying this. Zowie! Brenda was always scared and that was quite endearing. But best of all was Dee Dee. I've seen it said that Dee Dee was a little like Velma in that she was probably the smartest in the group. But although Velma was a fox, Dee Dee trumped her. I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say. She was smoking hot. Why she would hang out with essentially a furball with feet, or why a caveman that's been perfectly preserved in ice could be simply defrosted and enjoy a healthy crime-fighting life, despite the fact there'd be loads of modern-day pathogens floating around that he couldn't possibly have had any immunity for. I mean, I just can't tell you. The point is, I say yes, yes to Dee Dee. Right, into the top 3, and we get to our first superhero, if you don't count Shera, and I'm not. Me and my brother loved SpiderMan and his amazing friends because it had great action, it was pretty funny, and also, for me, secretly, I was completely in love with Firestar. Firestar really was amazing with that fiery red hair, the incredible all-in-one bodysuit, and some pretty cool powers. But the bonus with Firestar was that when she wasn't Firestar, she was Angelica. and Angelica was arguably even hotter, rocking an indie kid look years before you'd see girls dressed like that turning up at Supergrass concerts in the mid-90s. For me, she was a perfect girlfriend, smart, cool, beautiful, and if things got really tough, she was also a badass. Spider-Man and Iceman agreed with me because weirdly in this series they spent as much time going over the machinations of who was going to date Angelica Firestar as they did defeating the Goblin or really big fire things. Still, in the end, it was Spider-Man that got to kiss her. Broke my heart. Not really, I can't actually remember that happening, but it does annoy me now. I played Dungeons and Dragons once. I think I was a gnome or something and it didn't go well and I never went back. It was a sad afternoon. But it was never a sad afternoon when the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon was on. It was brilliant, like a 1980s Harry Potter with big dragons and magic and fire and all kinds of things. The weirdest thing about that cartoon was the little dungeon master who was supposed to be all powerful but didn't actually seem too bothered about massively helping the poor kids to get back home. For a start, the weapons he gave them were awful. 2 of them effectively just had sticks and 1 of them had a shield without a sword. I'm going to say it, the dungeon master was a nasty, sadistic little But of course, we're here for Sheila and Diana, because I can't split these 2, so they're going to have to come joint second. Sheila had the invisibility cloak because she had the role of a thief, which seemed a little bit harsh on somebody so pure. Also, Sheila was an odd choice of name. I think I'd have called her Deborah or something. That sounds better. And then there's Diana the acrobat. I'm not totally convinced that the animal fur bikini would have been chosen for her had this cartoon been made today, but I wasn't complaining at the time. To be honest though, it really was her incredible gymnastic skill and her dexterity with her magic staff that really impressed me and many others, it seems, who have left absolutely wholesome fanfic images of her all over the net. And so we reach my #1 heartthrob of my childhood. Now I did say no animals, but this one is at least part animal, for she is a Thundercat. Hilarious. I do of course mean Chitara. I mean, look at that wink. Dear God. This was a animation on a much higher level to Hanna-Barbera and they weren't afraid to show it off. Chitara was amazing, as if mid-80s sexy Madonna had been turned into a wildcat superhero wearing a classic 80s aerobics leotard. And few things at that time, if you were that age, were hotter than a Madonna-cat aerobics combo. Very different times. You did worry for her being the only female in the Thundercats, but the others seemed like they were decent lads, so it's probably all right. And she could always just run away if anything went wrong because she was the fastest. Although there was this time where Lion-O, to prove he was a great leader, beat all of them, all the other Thundercats, at their specialty. So he beat Tigra at, I don't know, machinery, something, and then he beat Panthro at strength, maybe, or being cool. And this really annoyed me, he beat Chitara in a race, which it just made absolutely no sense. I mean, Chitara's supposed to be the fastest. That's her thing, she's part cheetah. So how come Lion-O could beat her?
That's my boy!
It really annoyed me. I told myself it was because it didn't make sense for the characters, but the truth was, I was angry because I was in love with Chitara. Maybe I still am.
And so handsome too.
Thanks, Chitara. You're gorgeous. Wanna sack off the cats and go for a socially distanced beer?
And so handsome too.
Yeah. Bye.
And so handsome too.